This is one of those videos that I really hope doesn't age well, because it means that I was only right circumstantially for a little while, and then things changed and got better. Because I really don't believe in any avenue, for the most part. Movies, comic books, games, any of it. The DC knows what to do right now with Superman as a character. Superman's a very interesting character. There's a lot of depth to him, and a lot of people who misunderstand him, who just see him as a Boy Scout or some kind of paragon of light and hope, and that's it. There's no depth to him. That is not true. Superman is probably one of the most in-depth comic book characters ever written, and also one of the oldest. There are a lot of different ways to take the character in any medium, and it's really sad and surprising to see the architects, or I guess the current architects of that character, not know how to treat him and not know what to do with him. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. I appreciate it. I also do want to throw out there that Degenerate Plays down in the description below is a fun place for me, my friends, and even you guys to hang out, play some games, and chat. So I hope you'll check out that secondary channel in the description, but let's hop into it. Now, this applies to everything, like I said. I really do believe, starting with comics, that it's obvious they don't know what to do with Superman in comics, and have not for quite a few years. This is a problem in comics that has been off and on an issue since the New 52. And this doesn't mean that someone watching this is not allowed to like current Superman, or not allowed to like a direction they took him in the New 52 or anything like that. But if we look at the character and what he has always been about, Superman has always been about a few things: truth, justice, honor. He has always been this beacon of hope for people. And a big part of Superman is not just ultra powerful guy who can beat anyone. It's someone who always has to hold back in every fight so that he doesn't ruin the planet he's protecting. It's a story about an immigrant, somebody from a different planet who found their home here. He's more human than he is Kryptonian, but he embraces both lineages, even though biologically he's Kryptonian. There's something to that story there that connects with people as well. He was a character that was written by two Jewish immigrants who actually had a lot to say about the current state of the world when they wrote the character, and he's changed over time to mean different things to different people in their time periods. This has led to a lot of different Superman interpretations and characters who have taken up the Superman mantle over the years, and that's cool. They haven't all been great, they haven't all been perfect, but for the most part, they've had some direction and they've had meaning. If we look at the last few years of comic books of Superman, that's not really true. A lot of the attention that Superman has gotten has just been for things that shake up the status quo. Nobody's really talking about the depth and complexity of any current Superman stories in comics. What they're talking about is something like Jonathan Kent coming out as bi. Now, if you like that, that's fine. I don't even really care either way about Jonathan Kent that much, because I really do think that Brian Michael Bendis ruined that character by unnecessarily aging him up by quite a handful of years, which is also a whole bag of worms in and of itself. But those kinds of things, right? Those headline grabbers of, hey, listen, there's a new Superman now. It's John Kent, Superman's son, Clark's son. Those kinds of things. Or Clark's son is discovering who he is. Those kinds of things are headline grabbers. They're not story direction. They are not actually handling these characters with the care that they deserve. They are just, hey, listen, we changed the status quo, and it's a big deal. These things are essentially now used, replacing a character coming out, a character deciding something about themselves, or a character, breaking up with their romantic partner. All of those things now are used in the same way that I would say the 80s and 90s used the death of a character. It's ironically very similar to the way that they used the death of Superman when they wrote it in the comics, was to draw attention to the storyline. The difference is that story was good and had depth and character, and it stood behind all of the lore that character mattered for. It didn't just throw up a change of status quo for a headline.
I don't mean to interrupt, but it kind of reminds me of when I was younger and I would play with my Barbies and I would make them do ridiculous things just because I thought it was funny, like a soap opera.
That is what these characters have become.
Yeah.
Jill was passing through the room. But yes, I agree with that. I mean, a lot of these characters have become soap opera-y in the comics, and a lot of those status quo changes, they don't just affect Superman. They're things like Luke Fox being the Batman of the future, or, well, what would happen if Bruce Wayne was dead? All of those things. It does not mean none of them can be explored, but they are done more to shake up the status quo because they don't know what to do with this certain particular character they're writing now. It's gotten to the point in the comics, and again, I say that this will hopefully be a poorly aged video. It is recorded late 2021, where Superman has been completely moved off planet to go do his own thing, and actually his storyline is somewhat interesting. It's just not marketed and no one cares about it. No one's talking about it. They're not talking about it at DC. They're not talking about it in headlines, nothing like that, because changing the status quo is more interesting and eye-catching to people, no matter what it is, and that is just the facts. Now, it's sad to me because for a while Superman did regain his direction in comic books. The New 52 had a lot of issues with how they presented Superman and how it connected to readers. I personally love the beginning of Grant Morrison's run on Action Comics for the New 52. I thought it was fantastic, but it was a bit of a different Superman, a more isolated Superman who lost his parents and grew up with a little bit more of a cold upbringing, not quite as warm, and how he would find who he was and still become Superman and not become a monster or not become someone distant from humanity. Those were interesting questions that still did somewhat change the status quo with the New 52, but the character over time lost a lot of favor with fans who believed New 52 Superman was somewhat hollow. His suit sucked. I liked his suit. I'm going to be honest with you. I liked that part. And wanted the old Superman back. They wanted the old continuity back of Superman from prior to the Flashpoint. That was not a problem that actually affected a lot of other characters. It affected some, but it was a very Superman-specific problem, as fans were actually ready and willing to accept things like Scott Snyder's amazingly written Batman interpretation for the New 52 that carried over into Rebirth. People loved that stuff. But when it came to Superman, the big push was to bring back the OG, the original, and they did. They eventually did bring back Superman, the Superman that everyone knew and loved, instead of the New 52 one, with DC Rebirth, and they worked him into the story, and it seemed to be really interesting, and it had done something to also shake up the status quo. It had introduced a family aspect to Superman. No longer was he just in love with Lois, but he had a son. How would he raise that son in the same way that his parents raised him? And then eventually it even crossed over with the Watchmen franchise with Doomsday Clock, which I will say I am one of the few fans of. I love Doomsday Clock. I think there's problems with the build-up, but I really love the story, and I love how it captures who Superman is and the hope that he inspires and how he can change people. My issue with current Superman in the comics is that there is really none of that. Again, it is more about what is different now, and not about what Superman is. And this problem is not just in the comics. I know we took about 8 minutes to talk about that, but it expands everywhere. If we look at the video game atmosphere, I think that one is the most obvious. How many canceled Superman projects have there been since the launch of the Superman Returns game for the Xbox 360, which in and of itself was kind of bad, had a lot of problems. Superman has had a very unsuccessful video game career with only a couple of small sleeper hits like the death of Superman that many people aren't even as old as that game itself. It's more known with niche game collectors than average comic book or superhero fans. There were so many canceled projects with WB Games in recent years where we've received just screenshot after screenshot of what could have been games. The whole leaked Blue Steel thing where we got to see potential actual footage of a Superman game from a previous generation, but they weren't able to actually get it off the ground and finish it because WB didn't move forward with it. And that's kind of a problem, is that they have not been picking and choosing an actual creative direction to stick with. It doesn't matter if it's comics, it doesn't matter if it's video games, which don't get off the ground and just keep getting canned. And then there's movies. Movies are one of the most egregious ones, as they did cast who I believe is a fantastic actor, Henry Cavill, to play the role in the DCEU, now the Worlds of DC, or whatever they want to call it with the rebranding. They picked someone who could act very, very well. But again, they had problems reaching people with that interpretation. I love Man of Steel. I think that as much as I really enjoy BVS, it has a lot of conflicting plot lines that are fighting for attention due to, Zack Snyder being rushed to introduce Justice League, not by himself, but by WB. He was actually really pushed to work in the rest of these characters to the Superman story and use Superman more as a springboard to start the universe. The ironic thing now being that WB doesn't even care about Superman being in that universe. When's the last time we actually saw Henry Cavill? He just doesn't matter anymore.
And you know what's messed up about that? Henry Cavill is not only very, very handsome. Like, Superman's meant to be very handsome, first of all. Second of all, he's very handsome. Third of all, he can act really, really well. I mean, like, if you watch him in The Witcher, his performance is actually outstanding. Like, he can take your breath away just by acting.
He's really good. He's also very good in even some movies that aren't quite as amazing, like The Man and Uncle? I'm trying to remember. It was a spy movie, along with he's also really good. Like you said, in The Witcher, he was good in Mission Impossible. I mean, I haven't seen a role where he doesn't act well. It's not him, it's them.
If they just gave him a really good script, they could make the best Superman Justice League movie of all time.
What's funny to me is that many people were very, very, very excited for his return in Zack Snyder's Justice League, his cut of Justice League, and people loved it. People loved his inclusion. They loved the black suit Superman, the follow-up to the death of Superman. Even the people who thought that the death of Superman angle was rushed in BVS and could have just been its own movie, those people still loved his inclusion in Justice League, but Warner doesn't really seem to care. DC doesn't really seem to care about how he fits into that universe. It's just using him as a springboard to start it and now throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And I'm not saying that as someone who says, you need to bring back the Snyderverse or else it's going to suck. I loved James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie. That was not a Snyderverse movie. Like, Zack Snyder had nothing to do with it. I still think that movie was fantastic. And it's not that they can't write good things, it's that they don't have a place for one of their most iconic characters in their main universe that they're promoting, and that's just sad. It says a lot when the things people are most excited for are old things. I do think that there is one shining example of a good modern Superman take that people love, and that is obviously, Superman and Lois. I think that show, people adore it. People say it has a lot of heart and they love it, and they really like how it connects with fans of Superman, and it's more down to earth, almost Smallville-y, minus a lot of the cringe, which is incredible in the era of CW comic book shows that this show is able to pull it off. But that there is like the one thing I can think of that people are unanimously on board with and enjoying. When it comes to all these other avenues, though, what do people talk about with Superman? Old stuff. They talk about old things. Old animated movies. Old graphic novels like All-Star Superman. Superman Red Sun. Those things that stood the test of time and are still around and being talked about today. To the point where even WB knows it, and they'll still adapt those things into animated movies now, like Red Sun, which, even though it diverges a little bit from the source material, is still very good. Superman is a character that is being relegated to a time capsule by his rights owners because they don't understand how people were able to write him well in the past. All they understand is how to reprint or adapt those things now. The most depth you're going to see out of a Superman story at the moment is Evil Superman in Injustice, which I enjoyed for the first game that he was in. But even that now they can't get right, with the animated Injustice movie just sucking absolute balls and being terrible. It's really sad to see because this is one of my favorite characters in fiction of all time. I know he has some of my favorite panels and stories in comics. I remember how much Smallville meant to me growing up. with the live action Tom Welling adaptation of him. It had its cringe, but the idea of growing up alongside this young person who was figuring out who he was and how he fit into the world and, learning how to be Superman. It wasn't about him being Superman. It was about him becoming more than he was. I know in the comic books, he's always been iconic and interesting and somewhat tragic. He's a character who can hear like the screams and cries of people across the world all the time, has to filter them out in his head because he can't save everybody. Those things have a lot of depth to him. All-star Superman who's dying, essentially dying of sun cancer. You should check the story out. It's not stupid, even if that sounds a little silly, but Superman in the story is essentially dying, and he takes the time out of his day to prevent a young girl from killing herself, instead of just zooming by. He has things to do and a limited amount of time left, and he goes out of his way to protect people. That's the character that they are fumbling. That's the character that could mean so much to so many people. And his symbol, there's a reason that S means something and that people still know what it is. I'm tired and sad of all of these companies, whether it be Marvel, DC, their counterparts that own them for making movies, any of these fictional or companies that hold the keys to these amazing fictional worlds. They used to see the characters as something more and also a way to make money. And now it really feels like all that these characters are seen as is a vehicle to get another crossover event started or a vehicle to adapt some obscure thing into a big blockbuster movie to make some money. The only hope with a lot of those characters is the people on those adaptations caring, not the rights holders themselves. And I think that's really sad. And I think that it is tragically most true with Superman. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. This is one that hits home for me and really bothers me because of how much this character means to me. Yes, he's fake, but what he stands for isn't. What he means to people isn't. And the hope that he gives people isn't. The humility and the humbleness around him, despite being on the level of a god, those things are real to people and they speak to them. And I wish that the people making the stories, or at least who own the rights to them now, understood what that meant to people instead of just understanding that it used to be successful and can still be adapted. I'm interested to hear your thoughts down below. Please be sure to leave a like if you enjoy it and subscribe for more content. I appreciate you very, very much. We also do have a lot of links in the description down below if you're interested in supporting the channel. There is a Patreon, which we do a lot of stuff over on, along with doing full uncut videos. I know recently we did a Halloween Kills review, so there's going to be an uncut version of that review over there. It is, I believe, in our 10 to 15 minutes long because it was just too long for the main channel. We're going to do some other uncut stuff over there. And then my wife, Jill, runs a very, very beautiful shop in the description down below, Enchanted Glamour, where she makes bracelets, all kinds of jewelry. It's earrings. It's all unisex. Some of it's for women. Some of it's more directed at men. Some of it's for anybody. Maybe you have someone special in your life with a birthday or with Christmas coming up that you want to get something for. We do different sizes, and those purchases do go to help support the channel and the things we do here. So thank you very much. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shui.